Now imagine that I want to add some more style to the heading at the top of the page. Maybe instead of being color blue and left aligned, I want it to be centered. So we can add multiple CSS properties to the same HTML element. I can do that as well. So now, if I go ahead and open up style.html in my text editor, and use some more CSS property to this example itself. Here in the style attribute, I can say that in addition to saying that the color is blue, I'd like to give a second CSS property to this element. I'd like to say that the text align property should be center, for example. The text align property controls, as you might imagine, how a particular HTML element has its text aligned. Is it all the way on the left, all the way on the right, or centered? And if I change the text align property to have a value of center, well, then now, when I refresh this page, I see that welcome to my web page is now both blue, and it's centered. I've changed the color, and I've changed the alignment of this particular element. And HTML elements don't need to just be styled directly. They can also get their style information from parent elements. So if you recall again that DOM structure, where we have an HTML element inside of which is this body element, and inside of the body element is this H1 element and this text. You can imagine if we wanted this styling to apply not just to this heading, but also to the Hello World text, I could move the styling information, move this style attribute. Change it from the H1 and escalating it to this body. And if I move the style to the body, then everything inside of the body is going to be styled in that way. So let's now take a look at an example of that to see how that works. If I take this style information, and I move it so that instead of associating it with the H1, I instead associate it with the body, then now, when I refresh the page, I see that both parts of the body, both the big heading at the top that says, "Welcome to my web page," as well as the text, "Hello World," both have those CSS properties applied. I've changed their color to blue. And I've also changed their text alignment to be centered instead of just left aligned. But if I do want it to just be that heading, then I can move it out and say that I just want to apply the style to that one individual heading. Now, one thing that we might imagine might become a problem over time is that imagine if I had multiple headings that I wanted to style in the same way, for example. Let's say I have a second heading that this is a second heading that I also want to be styled as blue and centered as well. I can refresh this page and see that right now that is not the case. And I don't want to make the entire page blue and centered. I only want these two headings to be blue and centered. So what I could do is I could just take this style code from the H1 and apply it to this H1 as well, so that both of my H1 elements now have the exact same style code. And I'll go ahead and refresh this. And now, we see this is the intended behavior. I have two headings, both of which are centered and both of which are blue. But what we want to start to think about as we start to build web applications, and especially as our web applications start to get a little bit more sophisticated, is to think about the design of how we're building our web pages and how we're building our web applications. And you should start to think about how might you design this a little bit better. So in our next video, we will look at how might we start to design the web page little bit more better. Thank you.